All right, let's get started. Today, we are going on a journey, a really, really tiny one. We're about to zoom way past what you can see with your own eyes to get to know the most fundamental and, honestly, one of the most amazing things in the universe, the cell.
You know, everything that's alive, from a tiny little speck of bacteria to a giant blue whale, is made up of these incredible little engines. But what's actually going on inside of them? How can something so small hold the entire instruction manual for a whole person, or a tree, or a giraffe? That's exactly what we're going to unpack.
So, here's our game plan for today. We'll kick things off with the basics. What even is a cell? Then we'll take a tour of the bustling little city inside. We're going to find the main control center and decode its master plan. After that, we'll see how these cities multiply, and finally, what happens when there's a tiny typo in that plan.
Okay, first things first. What exactly is a cell? And where does it fit into, the whole story of life? To get that, we need to start with the science that studies all of this stuff.
And that science is, of course, biology. It's really that simple, the study of life. The word itself comes from the Greek for life and study, and it's been the official term for this massive field since way back in 1802. This is the world we're exploring.
Now, traditionally, biology gets split into two huge kingdoms. On one side, you've got zoology, the study of animals, which goes all the way back to the famous philosopher Aristotle. And on the other side, you have botany, the study of plants, which was pioneered by his student Theophrastus.
And that brings us to the absolute star of our show, the cell. This is it. This is the basic building block, the engine for every single living thing. Robert Hooke first saw them under a microscope in 1665, and this tiny world is so important it has its own special field of study called cytology.
Okay, now for the really cool part. Let's imagine we can shrink ourselves down and actually step inside one. Because a cell isn't just a blob of stuff, it's more like a busy, microscopic city. It's filled with all these specialized parts called organelles, and each one has a super important job to do.
Our first stop is this network called the Endoplasmic Reticulum, or just the ER for short. Think of this as the city's entire infrastructure. It's the highway system for moving things around, but it's also kind of like a flexible skeleton that gives the cell its shape.
And this highway system has two different lanes. You have the smooth ER, which builds things like fats and carbs, and then you have the rough ER, which looks bumpy because it's covered in all these tiny little dots. And those dots are absolutely critical. Those little bumps are ribosomes. And if the cell is a city, then these are the factories. Ribosomes are the smallest parts in the cell, but they have a massive job. They build proteins. And just to give you an idea of scale, a single human cell can have something like 10 million of these little factories working away at any given moment. It's unbelievable.
So we've got factories making things and highways moving them around the city. But who's giving all the orders? Who wrote the master plan for this whole operation? Well, for that, we have to go to the city's main office, its control center.
And here it is, DNA. This beautiful, twisting molecule is nothing less than the blueprint of life. Every single instruction needed to build and run an entire organism is packed inside it. And its iconic double helix shape, that was figured out by Watson and Crick back in 1953, a discovery that completely changed everything we thought we knew about life.
Now, DNA doesn't do all the work by itself. It has a very important partner, RNA. The best way to think about it is like this. DNA is the original master blueprint, and it's kept super safe in the nucleus, the head office. RNA is like a working copy, a single page of instructions that gets sent out to the factory floor, the ribosomes, to tell them what to build. They're very similar, but as you can see, there are a few key differences in their shape, their sugar, and one of their chemical bases. So how does all this information get stored? Well, it all comes down to a really simple, unbreakable rule. The rungs on the DNA ladder are made of chemical bases, and they always pair up in a specific way. A always pairs with T, and G always pairs with C. That's it. It's like a secret handshake that spells out the entire code for life. And this brings us to the central flow of information in all of biology. It's a three-step process. First, DNA can make a perfect copy of itself. That's called replication. When the cell needs to build something, a section of the DNA's code is copied into that RNA messenger. That's transcription. And finally, that RNA message goes to a ribosome, which reads the code and builds a protein. That's translation. Blueprint to message to product.
Okay, so now we have a pretty good idea of how a single cell works. But how do we get more of them? How does a baby grow into an adult? How does a cut on your finger heal? The answer to all of that is cell division.
The first and most common type is something called mitosis. This is the process your body uses pretty much all the time for basic growth and repair. It's this beautiful, orderly dance where one mother cell duplicates everything inside it, including all its DNA, and then splits into two perfect, identical daughter cells.
And you see mitosis in action all the time, even if you don't realize it. When your skin heals after a cut, that's mitosis making new cells. When a lizard amazingly regrows its tail, that's mitosis too. And, of course, the simple fact that we all grow from babies into adults is thanks to trillions upon trillions of these cell divisions. But then there's another really special type of division called meiosis. And this one has a very specific purpose: reproduction. Instead of making two identical cells, meiosis takes one cell and divides it into 4 unique cells, sperm or eggs. And here's the key. Each of those new cells only has half the number of chromosomes. Why? So that when a sperm and an egg combine, the new organism has a complete full set of instructions. Pretty clever, right?
Now, this process of cell division is incredibly precise. But think about it. With trillions of divisions happening constantly, every once in a while an error can slip through. So let's talk about what happens when there's a mix-up with the number of chromosomes, those little packages of DNA.
For UPSC, PCS, SSC, NEET and more, subscribe to Build and Breakthrough. Like the video and keep learning.